now?
8 years. Helping companies in Australia hire people internationally. I just need to know more about how it all works, and she's going to tell us all about it. So please make her welcome, Natasha Prevot.
Firstly, thank you. Finally got me here. I know you've been on me for the last few months to come and present, so I am so excited to hopefully demystify the entire, well, at least a portion of the visa system for all of you. And yeah, actually, just to sort of add, we've been rolling out these sessions across the country over the last few months. So we've partnered with a few of the key or the big VC players and just helping all of their portfolio members figure out visas, know that it's absolutely a possibility to get offshore talent into the country. And on top of that, we've worked with a couple of the universities on the East Coast with our entrepreneurship programs. Additionally, Austrade have gotten board, so we're presenting to a couple of their cohorts on visa information systems, and some of the key associations as well, like FinTech Australia, Tech Council Australia as well. So I'm really, really excited to be able to present to all of you. And I wasn't expecting as many people, particularly with school holidays, and it's a beautiful day, you could be at the show. But thank you for coming this morning. Okay, Techvisa. So before I kick off, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. So I'm a massive supporter of the startup scale-up world. I'm an angel investor, have really loved that journey over the last few years and just supporting startups as much as I can. My co-founder, Sam, and I, we are also mentors for Catalyzer, which is a migrant and refugee accelerator program. So supporting their cohorts over the last few years. And we've also set up a Activate grant. So it's exciting to sort of do that entire grant creation all the way through. And these migrants and refugees are on that very much early stage point of their startup, but it's exciting to kind of follow them. And then, of course, Techvisa. So Techvisa, it was born about 7-8 years ago. Myself and Sam, we saw this true niche in the market. There was absolutely no one specialising in immigration in tech, startup and scale-up. And we're like, right, we've got to do it. And I'm proud to say that we are still the only immigration agency in Australia in tech, startup and scale-up world. So it makes it really fun because immigration is a little bit dry time to time, but it's the startups and scale-ups that we're working with that make the entire journey pretty awesome. So I come from a legacy of immigration. My mother, grandmother and my auntie, all migration agents. My grandmother is in her 80s and she is still operating almost full-time, which is insane. So you can imagine Christmas dinners and the entire thing and all those fun conversations, but honestly, she's an awesome support. So it's been with me for many years. Sam and I both came from recruitment prior to immigration. The good part for you is that we can look at the entire talent planning cycle. We get it from the get-go. We know how hard it is to attract. We know that retention is key, so it is not just giving you, right, here's the visa solution. It's the entire talent planning piece that we can help with. So, right, Techvisa. So, as we said, because we are the only ones in this space and specialising, we've had some awesome opportunities come to us. So we're working, as we said, closely with Austrade, and we've done a couple of their global missions recently. So it was great. Got to head over to Paris for Viva Tech, London Tech Week, Money 2020 in Amsterdam, and they've booked us for Singapore FinTech Festival in November. So really, really exciting to go in as their service provider and giving as much help to the cohort heading there. Got an awesome team behind me. I am Perth, West is best. I'm the only one over here in WA. Sam's in Brizzy and the rest of my team, so I've got an incredible team of 10 in Sydney. So we're nationwide and we can support over the entire country. So yeah, so as I said, this is a real passion. If people, so many people come into this space and they say, oh, look, but what's your hustle? What's that real thing that you love on the side? This is it. I live and breathe immigration. So here we go. Get ready to be blown away with some visa subclasses. Right. Okay. So just to give you some context, there is currently 120 visa categories in immigration and hundreds of streams within that. So what I've done, I have narrowed it down to the key four that the majority of our startups and scale-ups use. And I will slowly walk you through that nitty-gritty, give you examples as well on how they maximise these subclasses, and let you know it is 100% possible to get that offshore talent in and driving the growth of your business. So we're going to touch on the 400 subclass. It's a nice short-term one. It's also one of my favourites. The 482, which is that temporary skilled employer stream, and then jumping onto the holy grail, which most people coming over would like, which is permanent residency, and then the 858, which is all about the creme de la creme. This is for the top of the top in any industry. It's a pretty amazing subclass. It only came out a couple of years ago, and basically anyone who applies for this, if they get that invitation, within 6 weeks they can have permanent residency without even setting foot in Australia. So it's a very, very interesting one. Okay, let's do it. Okay, subclass 400. So if a migration agent could get excited about a subclass, this is it. It is not used anywhere near enough. It is an amazing one because it is for highly specialised individuals coming in that are going to perform a body of work, a project, or really get the business up and running, get into the operations as quick as possible. And why I love it, it takes 2 weeks to be processed. It could even be quicker depending on the country of passport. 2 weeks, it's about $2,500, and that's with our fees as well. And it gets that person 3 to 6 months employment attached to your company. So if you've got, so for example, I'll give you an example. So we've worked with a fintech. They said, right, all our operations are in India. We haven't even set up an ABN. We've got nothing happening here in Australia, no employees on the ground. How do we get someone in? This is the subclass. So what we did was we applied for this one. It took 2 weeks. We attached all of his family onto the application. They did not have to do an English exam. They don't have to do a police clearance. They don't have to do a medical. It is minimal requirements to get this individual in. And you've got them then attached to your startup or scale up for 3 to 6 months. I mean, it is amazing. Plus, on top of this as well, the applicant can cover all the costs. So as a startup, it can be difficult. You're counting every penny. The applicant can say, no, I'm committing myself to this. I'll cover the $2,500 of costs. And then all that the startup need to do is to provide a letter of support or an invitation letter and say, right, we genuinely need this person in the country to help this project or this body of work, or as I said, get in here as our first country hire and help scale our operations. So it's an absolutely awesome one. Now, no advertising is required. Sometimes we might help you out with an ad or two if needed, but generally not. It's a highly specialised occupation. The majority coming in are of that highly specialised nature. So your software engineers, developer programmers, web designers, any of those coming in, all come into that category. And as I said, such minimal paperwork for you, for them. And on top of this, the startup and scale up does not need to have any sponsorship obligations. So there's nothing that you have to, With the 482, with the longer term temporary temporary subclasses, you have to report to immigration. There's different things that you need to meet. This one, it doesn't apply. So jump on board this is a huge one. So I'd love to talk to you all about this a little bit more, as you can see how excited I am on this. Now, the 400, once they're in the country, if they then decide, right, I might need to stay a little bit longer, the project's going to be extended out, it's going to be past that 6-month point, then we can absolutely look at other subclasses. So we can do that transition. They apply for the other visa, they get a bridging visa, so there is literally no discontinuation of employment. They can just continue through until that next application's granted. So that brings me on to those longer term temporary sponsored visas. So this used to be called the 457. It underwent an entirely new branding with immigration. They said, we've got rid of it. There's a new one coming out. It was just renamed. So it is now the 482 visa. And this is the one which gives that applicant 2 to 4 years employment here in Australia. Now, it's a 3-stage. The first stage is sponsorship. So we've got to get the business set up as a standard business sponsor. So to make it a little bit easier to understand, this part is about getting your business a license to sponsor employees overseas. So you can sponsor as many workers as you need during that 5-year period. So documents that are going into immigration, they'll look at sort of, financial health. So we help submit all of the submissions that go with that, your profit and loss, balance sheet. We look at workforce details and just providing a business case to immigration and exactly what's needed. So my entire team help craft all of this. We deal with immigration. You do not need to speak to them. Now, I've also listed out the accredited one because the accredited one is usually when you've hit a few key milestones after you've done a few nominations. However, exciting news on the Tech Startup Scaleup front. We are partnered, we're members of Tech Council Australia, and we're currently lobbying for startups to be able to access accreditation. And that will give them such a huge leverage point, such a leg up over sort of these big giants in terms of getting that offshore talent in. And what it means, they don't have to look at character clearances, there's streamlined processing, there could even be sort of salary exemptions. So it hasn't happened yet, but we're in the works at the moment of lobbying with them and hopefully getting something like this over the line. So it's just a little excited thing there. Okay, right, 482. Here we go. So as I said, it is a 3-stage application: sponsorship, nomination, and visa. Who's dealt with a 482 or has anyone gone through this process before?
I don't.
Pardon?
I went through visa. Ambassador was in my pathology and I'm here.
Excellent. There we go.
I wasn't like, I can be sick, schizophrenic, and like you said, it's 400. I'm just 100.
Yeah. And then you'd have to go through all of, obviously, the character and health and the whole rigmarole. Long process. And that's why you've got to get to a migration agent to help you so we can push everything along. Yeah, fantastic. So 482, as I said, this is for your temporary skilled workers. 3-stage. SPS nomination and visa. Now, the critical part of this is this nomination application. This is where it can trip up people or trip up startups and scale-ups because it is very driven by timelines, the deadlines, but of course we'll help you with all of that, and advertising. Advertising is the big one. So when you are nominating an individual, you need to have the advert live for 28 days across 3 platforms. One of them is run by immigration. It's called Workforce Australia. It's a tough one to get through, but we help you. There's all the tick boxes, everything that needs to go into those adverts. If you lodge your application prior to advertising being completed, if you put your contract in before advertising is completed, up for a refusal. And you don't want to be dealing with a refusal with immigration. That is an entire process in itself, off to the AOT and everything else. So we are here, my team is fabulous at this. We help track the ads at 1 day, 14 days, 28 days. We make sure it ticks, as I said, all of the boxes. And then on top of this, we help craft some of the submissions. You need to show immigration that it's a genuine position. You've tested the local labour market. Salary as well, this is a key one. $70,000 plus super is the minimum to be able to sponsor someone in on this 482 subclass. That can also, if you're looking at something with an individual that needs to come in on commission, you could do a 60,000 and then 10,000 commission guaranteed. So we can sort of work with this, but the minimum is about 70,000. English is also needed too, so the testing's got to happen. Police clearances, health. So again, if you're just wanting someone here really quickly, that's why you should consider that 400 to begin with, to get them in, and then they can deal with the English and everything else that they need once they're here in the country. Now, it is a good retention strategy because the individual says, right, they're coming over and they say, I want to bring my whole family, everyone wants to come in. How long's this one for? It's 2 years, up to 4 years, but with pathways to permanent residency. So it's beautiful like that. You've got that whole retention piece where someone goes, right, I will give you my loyalty working for the company, if you kind of can help make that promise that we can get through to sponsorship. So, yeah, processing times, it's about 1 month. It used to be 6 months. They have put so many resources into this, immigration, in terms of processing. So 1 month is bloody ideal. And then this big one, sponsorship obligations apply. So once you are approved as a sponsor, you must adhere, or at least there's a lot of compliance that's sort of attached to it. So that means if there's a change in the business structure, if there is the person moves, to a different occupation, different things happen, you've got to let immigration know. We'll do this on your behalf. You do not need to talk to immigration at all. When we're your migration agents, we're the whole way through. So at least it takes that headache and stress off altogether. One that is really interesting is that if someone does resign and they go back to their home country, or they want to go back to their home country, you as the employer are required to pay for their flight back home as well, for them and their family, which so many employees don't even realise that that's a thing. But again, it's only if they put it in writing. So there's a few little things like that we can give you the heads up. I see you shaking your head. I know. It's a little bit of a shock on this one. But as we said, we're here to support you on that whole sponsorship obligation compliance piece. Another tough one on this is finding the right occupation. So in a startup and scale up, it is not, you're wearing multiple hats. It's every type of, you're doing everything under the sun. It's multifaceted. So that's where we come in. So you say, Tash, I've got this incredible candidate over in the UK or Brazil and that. What occupation? How do we get them in? So we look at their CV, we look at their job description, and then we have to deal with the very old school traditional list of immigration. So to give you an example, we've worked a long time with this game tech. They're a unicorn that's been, they were amazing. They were actually 2 to begin with when they came to us. They're now up to 200, and as we said, one of the unicorns here in Australia. And they needed to get in this game developer. So there is no occupation that exists in the immigration occupation list for a game developer. So what we ended up having to get them in as was a multimedia specialist, and the description was, has the ability to work with CD-ROM and VCR. And that's immigration occupation list for you. Again, approved, no problem. These are so we know the cutting edge occupations that they're coming in as, and we can figure it out with this old school immigration list. Another one, we're working with a space tech in Queensland. They had someone coming in to oversee the launch pad. So literally, someone coming in as a very specialised concreter, basically. How on earth do we get them in? You're not going to find a launch pad technician on the immigration list. So again, took a little bit, we looked at the job description, we put the table together, what things match, and in the end they're coming in as an aeronautical engineer. But we got them over the line, here they are, they're working towards permanent residency now. So that's what we're here for. Yeah, to make things match. And also in the startup world, you've got product managers, absolutely everywhere. Again, that is a very, very difficult one to sort of figure out or to match in. So sometimes they come in as a business analyst. But also there's 2 different lists. Sometimes they get 2 years, sometimes they get 4 years. So we are there to optimise exactly the list that they'll be going on and their beautiful pathways to permanent residency. Okay. Let's go. Right, 186. As I said, this is holy grail. This is what everyone seems to be aiming for in Australia. When we were going through COVID times, so many people were saying to me, Tash, how are you still even in business? The borders are closed. You can't even get them in the country. This is not happening. And I said, but everyone here wants to stay. Everyone wants to convert to permanent residency. So we ended up doubling in size in terms of our employee numbers during that point. And the majority were going through this subclass, which is that 186, employer sponsored. So there has been a shake-up in immigration. They've basically thanked everyone that was here during COVID as sort of that COVID recovery. So they have relaxed the pathways to get this 186, which is really exciting. So, for example, if you used to have an occupation like a recruitment consultant on the short-term list, you could not get permanent residency. After 4 years, you're out the country. Like, that's it, or find a lovely Australian partner, whatever you need to do, but out the country. Now, anyone in Australia on a short-term or long-term list can go for permanent residency, which is huge. So there's two streams, direct entry or temporary transition. So you may have a offshore talent coming to you and say, I want permanent residency straight away. I'm not going to be joining you until that happens. So look, there's two ways you can do this. You could say, all right, come in as a 482 holder and work for us for 9 months, obtain your skills assessment with the Australian Computer Society or VetAssess, and then we can look at the permanent residency application because it's a 12-month process, this one, 9 to 12 months. If you want to give them permanent residency straight away, you have to wait as a startup 9 to 12 months until approval, until they can start for you. So, yeah, you don't want to be waiting those types of timelines at all. So as we said, that's what we do. We look at the entire piece and figure out, okay, let's get them here, let's help drive your growth all the way through until they obtain permanent residency and you've got a really loyal employee then after a few years. It's indefinite. There's also an encouragement for them to go for citizenship too with this one. After 5 years, even if they're in the country, they still have to get a resident return visa to get back in. It's happened to my partner a few times. Even though I'm a migration agent, leaves the country, I forget that he hadn't gone for citizenship, and so I was frantically trying to do an application in a couple of days to get him back in. But we got there, so that's always good. Now, as I said, two streams, temporary transition. If you want to lock them in a little bit longer, the temporary transition means they don't need a skills assessment. There's a few less requirements, which is great. So they would be working for you for 2 years under the new changes, and then after 2 years, they can then go for permanent residency, which is really exciting. English language is a little bit higher in terms of scores. Health and character is always needed as well for these ones. Okay, we are nearly there. Okay, talent planning. As we said, I'm coming from a recruitment background, totally get it. I've been on a temp desk, I've worked in London. London is dog eat dog when it comes to recruitment, so I totally get attraction is difficult, retention is absolutely key. Where can we help and how? So, right, so let's say you've got your financial health, market opportunities ready to be seized. You go, okay, boom. I need to scale, I need to get talent. This is the point you think, okay, what local labour can I get here that's fabulous and can help me scale my business? Is there any offshore talent that I need to at least bring in for 3 to 6 months? Absolutely upskill my Aussie team, and then we can drive the growth further and further. So this is the point that we can look at and say, okay, these are your pathways, and we work with a lot of startups that are pre-revenue, so we know it works, we know the submissions that need to go in. So don't think, oh my God, I'm 2 or 3 man band, I can't do this, I don't have revenue currently. We're used to working with those types of startups too. So, as I said, local labour versus offshore, we'll look at the strategies, making sure, as I said, not just throwing them into a 4-year visa. It is a beautiful pathway, so they're engaged, they're here, they're ready to give it their all. This is something that all of you can go for right now. So you're in the interview process. You've got 3 candidates from, let's say the US. 3 candidates from the US, and you say, Tash, I don't know if they can actually get in. I don't want to commit to an interview until it happens. What you can do, send me the CV. I send it out to my team. We present to you sort of an eligibility assessment. It's a 1-page document, says their occupation, the fees, the process, what they need to do. Very, very simple. And then you know immediately that they are qualified and they can, you continue on the interview process, which is great. There's absolutely no fee for this. You can send me 30 CVs. This is what we do for so many companies before they even commence the interview process. On top of that is candidates. If you've got candidates that say, I'm on the job hunt, cannot find anything, everyone's scared because I need a visa, they send me their CV. Again, it's a 1-page. They then can use that with all of their interviews. And us as a business, we don't charge for advice. Everything comes back around as well. So you are welcome to call, email. As we said, we're massive supporters of the ecosystem. So yes, absolutely. Get on this one straight away. I'm happy to send some examples. And then, of course, once you've got them in, we can also help with the monitoring and compliance part too. Okay, on to the last one. Right. really, really pumped for this. So we're taking on the world. We're doing our best to. So yes, Australia is our bread and butter. We know what we're doing. As we said, we're the only ones doing in this space. You'll see us up at all of the startup events. We're over at South by Southwest in a few weeks. West Tech Fest, we've got our tickets, loads happening. Startup and Angels as well. We're sending over our community lead and up on stage. So that's how we sort of make ourselves known in this industry. We don't advertise. We literally get out there to as many startup events and just talk to people. Everyone needs help. So, because we had a few of our key clients say, right, we're expanding to Singapore, could you go and set up an office in Singapore? We want the Techvisa way. So we're like, okay, let's do it. So it was very organic. So we ended up incorporating in Singapore. So now we are able to do visas into Singapore. We've got a US attorney working for us. So if you need visa help into the US, you can do that as well. And after London Tech Week, we have signed with a partner firm. So we've got a partner immigration agency over there that we're running a few events for too. So we can do visas UK, Singapore, US, and of course, Australia. There we go. Done. You made it through. Well done. Hopefully that helped and demystified. And as I said, you're so welcome to get in touch with myself, my team. We don't charge for advice. Give us a call. We're here to support you. Thanks, Scott.